The mayor of Imperial Beach has found himself in another giant battle over the environment, and this time he and others are suing ExxonMobil for at least partially causing climate change and sea level rise. In response, ExxonMobil is going after him. KUSI's Dan Plant joins us live from Imperial Beach. He's got more on all of this. Dan, what's happening?
Well, anytime you pick a fight with a global giant, you know, they're going to fight back. And that is exactly what's happening with ExxonMobil. Yes, the lawsuit was filed actually years ago. It's taken a long time to sort of work its way through the process. But ExxonMobil is actually named. Originally, they went after 33 different companies, oil companies, basically energy companies. And only ExxonMobil responded. So they're the ones who were involved in this legal battle. And by the way, it involves Santa Cruz, it involves San Mateo, Imperial Beach, and a variety of others around the country. So this is a lawsuit that is a nationwide lawsuit against ExxonMobil. And yes, they are fighting back in any way they possibly can. But what they're talking about is sea level rise. And down here in Imperial Beach, of course, is a very good example pretty much every single day of what is happening with the sea level. And you can look at it right here. We're at the southern end of Imperial Beach where the houses come to an end and all the sand begins as it gets down to Mexico. And you can see all of the big boulders, the riprap as they call it, that are put around this condo complex here. Without that riprap, those boulders, that condo complex probably wouldn't be there today, right? So by the way, this isn't even a high tide. This is a low to medium tide right now. So when the tide comes up, it gets way higher than that. And of course there are homes all the way up and down from here to the pier. So this is kind of a snapshot of just how it is normally. And then if you add some really extreme conditions, what we're talking about here, with king tides and big waves and, you know, sea level rise, well, things could definitely get a little bit worse. And there's the kids having fun down here on the beach. I'm sure you see them having a good time. But earlier today, we got a chance to catch up with Serge Dedina, talk a little bit about the legal action, ExxonMobil, and how they're coming after him. Take a look.
After 40 years of battling the country of Mexico over criminal pollution, the tiny town of Imperial Beach is no stranger to taking on big environmental challenges. That's why they have now joined forces with other California towns to sue the big oil companies, who they say are at least partially responsible for climate change and sea level rise.
So IV, a few years ago, filed a lawsuit along with other cities and counties in California to hold fossil fuel companies accountable for causing sea level rise and climate change.
This is the scene 2 years ago when the ocean along Imperial Beach could not be contained. A combination of king tides and big waves made for some big problems.
We have seen significant sea level rise and coastal flooding over the last few years. The kind of flooding that just happens when we have a king tide and a little bit of surf. Flooding that we've never seen before.
According to Mayor Dedina, decades of polluting by the major oil companies have at least contributed to the changes in sea level you see here. Originally, the lawsuit targeted 33 different oil companies. ExxonMobil was the only one to respond, and they did so by calling the lawsuit a conspiracy full of fabrications. Then went after Mayor Dedina's personal records and communications.
So they're trying to intimidate us and say that, and what Exxon is saying is that we're violating their free speech rights in Texas by saying that they've caused climate change. Just to make sure we're clear, Exxon is based in New Jersey. They're not a Texan company. And so they're just trying to use the Texas courts to intimidate us.
Part of that potential intimidation by ExxonMobil is using the court system in Texas to summon those who sued, even though they're from California. Texas is an oil-friendly state with what could be oil-friendly judges.
I just don't want to end up at a chain gang in Waco, you know, cleaning up the freeway because some crazy Texas judge agrees with them, right? So, you know, I'm not intimidated, but, you know, it's Texas, so who knows what will happen. I don't want the marshals to show up in cowboy hats at my house while I'm at the beach.
A beach that is now lined with massive boulders to protect those homes, at least for a few more years. But if the predictions are correct from Scripps and others, much of this area could be underwater over the next 80 years.
Look, we're asking them to pay for the damage they're causing. This, you know, we did a study and an economic impact study of sea level rise and coastal flooding over the next through 2100. We're looking at over $100 million of damage just to our beachfront. And I'm talking about damage to our roads, damage to our stormwater system, our sewer system, our electrical utilities. It's already happening.
Alrighty, back out here live at the south part of Imperial Beach looking toward Tijuana. As you can see, this is the National Estuary, and we're up on this berm that basically separates the estuary from the ocean. As Mike is going to show you, there's a great perspective on what basically NOAA and Scripps and a variety of other institutions are predicting, and that is eventually over the next 80 years, the sea level rise will increase to the point where it'll spill over this berm into that estuary and basically become all as one. We're talking about 80 years. And then the other scenario is, as you face north from here, Michael, as you look at the estuary, as that river goes north, about 2 miles from here is actually San Diego Bay and Coronado. The fear is that San Diego Bay will also merge with the estuary, which will merge with the ocean, and this entire area that we're standing in right now will all be underwater by the year 2100. So as you look down the street right here, of course, if Mike pans left, you see we're on kind of high. You can see the houses, the condos, and basically all the places that are in the way of what could be sea level rise. By the way, doing a little Google search, if every single glacier on Earth melted today or over the next 100 years, if they all disappeared and melted, sea level rise would go up 230 feet. So anybody below 230 feet could be underwater. Let's hope that that does not happen. And by the way, I also did a little research, finding that some of the glaciers right now on Earth are actually growing in certain areas, while some of them are rapidly melting in other areas. So obviously there's a lot of different conflicting science on what exactly is happening out here, but I think a lot of people agree that there's something happening in our climate and that the ocean is rising, that the glaciers are melting, and that we need to do something about it. Of course, in our political world, there are a lot of extreme things being talked about, trillions of dollars being thrown at this. Some things will work, some things won't. We'll see what happens, but this is a great example down here to show you an area that really could really be impacted, and really already is being impacted during those king tides and those big waves. So that's what's going on out here, you guys, in Imperial Beach, talking potential environmental disaster, but this time not from Mexico. That's a different story altogether.
Yeah, it sure is.
So that's what's going on from
you have certainly
Imperial
covered and we've
Beach.
covered here. Dan, thanks for the update. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Very interesting what's going on there.
Well, locals in Point Loma are still pushing back